no national cabinet yet, also no provincial cabinet in Gauteng. Yesterday, the provincial government first said the ANC Premier, Newzroom would announce his cabinet at 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Then that announcement was postponed. The national ANC confirming it did ask Lesotho to postpone his announcement. At the same time, Letuli House, as you saw, saying this afternoon parties cannot make outlandish demands in public. Solly Msimanga is the Gauteng leader of the Democratic Alliance. Solly, good afternoon to you. Were you expecting some of your members to be appointed to the Gauteng cabinet yesterday afternoon?
Well, I don't think that there could have been any member of our party that would have been appointed without us engaging, first of all, in terms of the portfolios, but second of all, in terms of things that we had already put forward. Let me make it very, very clear. We are not going to be engaging with the ANC or any other political party on the media, and this is why you have never seen any of us actually commenting or writing any articles to the media, because we have freely engaged in these negotiations with the greatest of faiths, and also understanding that we need to then find a solution to the crisis that have really crippled this country and particularly this province. And therefore, we had gone into this and indicated to them that we were willing to then engage and find solutions to the impasses before any kind of announcement could be made. And that's what we were hoping for, and that's what we're still hoping for.
So just so I don't misunderstand you, are you saying there's been no engagement at all with the Gauteng ANC about who of your members will go in and could be MECs?
No, we haven't got into that. Where we are at this point in time, Stevens, is that there's been an engagement around the principles, first of all, because we said, let's engage on the principles before we even go on to, positions. First of all, we have said, there needs to be an engagement around the proportional representation, because the voters have indicated in Gauteng that they don't trust any of us to govern on their own. Therefore, you now need to then use your proportions according to what the voters have said and say, how do you put a government together? That's the first thing. The second thing, you now need to then understand that there's no party that has a great majority to govern on its own. Therefore, there needs to be an indication, or there needs to be a conversation around how you share power and how decisions are to be made. The third thing is you also now need to then say, if the two biggest parties in the province are to then share positions, what will be the proportionality? And therefore, if you then have parties that are coming from there, which should be accommodated, how do you then accommodate those parties? The fourth thing is to then say, once you have disputes, because you don't want to wait until you're months into an agreement, and therefore disputes start to arise, and then you start to try and find out ways in which to deal with disputes. You say then, let's find a way and agree on a principle first of all, before you go into this kind of thing. Once you have already done that, you then go into what kind of portfolios each will be getting, and then what kind of mechanisms we'll be putting in place to then keep each other to account. So once you've agreed on those principles, you then talk about the positions and you talk about the names, and therefore you're able to then make those pronouncements.
So, Solly, I mean, just to understand, you can have negotiations happening by province. There are also negotiations between the national leadership of your party and the national leadership of the ANC. Could the national leadership of your party be having conversations about Gauteng with the national leadership of the ANC? There's an important principle here about whether what's happening in national government will affect what happens in Gauteng and vice versa.
Well, we have said there needs to be a principle that is applied, and we need to then, respect that. I can tell you right now, go and ask in KZN, what is the principle that was applied in KZN? That, by the way, was asked by the ANC to be applied. And if you were to then follow that principle, then you would then say, if they had asked for that principle to be applied there, why can't it be, applied everywhere else? And this is the conversation that we are having. But as I said, Stevens, I don't want to then use this platform to look like we are trying to, lobby for the public to engage in one way or the other. I think this is the parties who must find themselves, and find the principle that all of them, or all of us can, really work around and be able to then come up to some kind of a solution and a conclusion around this. And we're still committed to that.
So do you believe it's really possible to appoint a provincial cabinet when we don't have a national cabinet? They're not part of the same thing. From what you say, they seem to be quite different.
It's not the same thing. Gauteng that, other provinces, have appointed. Even in KZN, where it was hung, even in the Northern Cape, where it was hung, there's been appointments that have been made. But we are still saying that even at a provincial level, we still need to have those engagements, and those engagements needs to be meaningful. It doesn't mean that you now have to have one party that is behaving like a bully and expecting everybody else to then fall into line. I don't think that that's where any of us would want to be. And at the same time, I think all of us must respect the wishes of the voters and say, well, this is what the voters are giving us. And are you able to then find, a level of maturity and a way in which you can work together? Certainly we want to do that. And this is why we have said, let's find the space in which we're able to then, look at what we want to then do collectively and make sure that all those things that might be stumbling blocks going forward are able to then be addressed, up front. So that when you go into this arrangement, not only do you have an arrangement that starts, but you have an arrangement that has got longevity, that will be able to then go the test of time. It will be unfair and it will be very, very much a disaster if at a provincial level you would then begin to then have, motions of no confidence in a couple of weeks or in a couple of months' time. You want to make sure that there's stability, but more importantly, you want to make sure that there's delivery. Certainly, the DA is only going into this if we can, and we will be able to then demonstrate that we can then deliver and we can get into portfolios that will be able to then better the people's lives. If that is not the case, then we will not going to be part of, the engagements going forward.
Solly, I don't know how far you can push this. There are other options for the ANC in Gauteng. You got 27% of the vote, they got 35. There's already been working relationships at local government level in Gauteng between the ANC and the EFF. Yes, they might need more than the EFF, but there are other options for the ANC in Gauteng.
Well, I think there's options for all of us students. And the ANC does have options, yes. They can go and push for a minority government. They can go and find other political parties that they might be able to then go into this arrangement with. And, we're very mindful of that. But, those options are not limited to only that. But as we said, we are wanting to go into this because, as we had said even during our campaign, we want to make sure that South Africa doesn't continue the trajectory that it has been on. We want to make sure that Gauteng doesn't continue the trajectory that it's been on. And therefore, if it means that we are going to go into government, we are not going into government to prop up any party. We're going into government understanding that we had said to the voters that we wanted to do certain things and we want to do them differently. And therefore, if we are going to go into government, it shouldn't just be, because you're going to get blue lights or anything. It should be that you're going to go into a portfolio that you can make a difference. And we can then demonstrate to the people of South Africa that we can work together, in different portfolios, and we can then show that, there can be a difference that, call it a new crop that is being introduced into the cabinet. And also to make sure that when you are engaging in the cabinet, you're able to then, ensure that, decisions are actually then based on a balanced view, on a balanced way in which the residents will be able to then benefit at the end of the day. But if we're going to go in there just, to prop up an organization or another organization, that it becomes a bit of a challenge for us. And this is what we have said even before. And this is why we said, let's agree on the principles of power sharing. Let's agree on the principles of proportionality. Let's agree on the principle of what will happen when there's disputes. You're able to do that. You're able to then agree in terms of the portfolios that are to be shared. And then you're able to then start hitting the ground running. And that's what we want to do, Steve.
Solly, the clock is ticking here, okay? It's ticking in various places and there are different clocks and they're all ticking in very loud, empty cabinet halls at the moment. How urgently does Gauteng need a cabinet? Can Gauteng live without MCs for much longer?
We need a cabinet as in yesterday, and we have been saying that we're ready to engage. We had been engaging since since the Friday after Panyaza Lesufi was actually elected, and we have been trying to engage, and we have been saying let's push for these meetings to take place. But also when we get into the meetings, let's not come into the meetings as in this is our position and you either take it or you leave it. But you go in there and understanding that there is negotiations, and if you negotiate in good faith, you'll find that you can put a position, and another person can put a position, and you find the middle ground in there, and then you walk on from there. And this is what we have been trying to do. And unfortunately, to a degree, there has been delay in terms of continuing with the conversations. And hopefully by tomorrow we should be able to then meet again. Around again tomorrow, and hopefully we will be able to then find each other. Should we be able to then find each other, I don't think that it should be taking long before there will be an announcement of the cabinet, and we can all hit the ground running. That's what we're hoping for, at least.
Solly Msimanga, thank you, leader of the DA in Gauteng. Do appreciate the time.